Welcome to Pickorama Sleep Zone. Tonight, we continue our journey through the Museum of Forgotten Dreams. If you're already resting comfortably, simply close your eyes, breathe gently, and let the rain carry you deeper into tonight's story. Now, our journey continues. The rain that remembered. Rain had been falling since late afternoon. Not the kind of rain that hurried through the streets or rattled against rooftops, but the quiet kind. The kind that seemed to linger, as if every drop carried an old memory back to the earth. The city moved more slowly beneath the gray sky. Ember street lamps glowed softly against the wet cobblestones, their reflections stretching across the empty streets like ribbons of golden light. Inside his small apartment, Jack sat beside the window. A warm cup of tea rested between his hands. The gentle crackle of the fireplace blended perfectly with the steady rhythm of the rain outside. It had been many weeks since his last visit to the museum, or perhaps only the museum truly knew how much time had passed. Time had never behaved normally there. Some nights inside the museum lasted only a few moments. Others seemed to hold entire lifetimes. Jack had stopped trying to understand it. Instead, he had learned something far more important. Some mysteries were not meant to be solved, only experienced. The bronze key rested quietly on the wooden table beside him. Its worn surface reflected the warm firelight. Most days, it looked like nothing more than an old forgotten key. Simple, ordinary, silent. But on rainy nights, it sometimes remembered. Jack slowly reached toward it. His fingertips brushed the cool bronze. Nothing happened. He smiled to himself. Perhaps tonight would be peaceful after all. He leaned back into his chair and watched tiny drops of rain slide down the glass. Across the street, an old bookstore was preparing to close. Its owner carefully turned off each lamp, one by one, until only a single golden light remained glowing in the front window. People hurried home beneath dark umbrellas. A child laughed somewhere in the distance. A bicycle rolled softly across the wet stones. Then, the city grew strangely quiet, not silent, simply as though the world itself had taken a slow, gentle breath. Jack noticed it immediately. The rain was still falling. The fire was still burning. Yet everything felt different. Without warning, the bronze key began to glow. Not brightly, only enough to paint a faint circle of golden light. Across the table, Jack looked at it without surprise. He had been expecting this night. Somehow, he had known the museum would call again. Outside, a single white feather drifted slowly past the window. Jack stood. There were no white birds nearby. No wind strong enough to carry a feather through the rain. Yet, there it was, floating gently, almost as though someone invisible had placed it there. He quietly slipped on his familiar dark coat. The room remained warm behind him. The tea still steamed softly upon the table. The fireplace continued its gentle conversation with the quiet night. But beyond the front door, something was waiting. Jack opened it. Cool evening air greeted him. The scent of rain, cedar trees, and distant earth filled the streets. He stepped outside. The city lights shimmered beneath thousands of falling drops. Somewhere, far beyond the rooftops, a bell rang once. Soft, gentle, almost impossible to hear. Jack stopped walking. A peaceful smile appeared across his face. He knew that sound. The Museum of Forgotten Dreams had remembered him once again. The path beneath the rain. Jack followed the sound of the distant bell without hesitation. There had been a time when he would have questioned everything. Why the bell rang, why the museum appeared, why the white fox had chosen him. But those questions had slowly faded, carried away by countless rainy nights. Some journeys asked for curiosity, others asked only for trust. Tonight, he chose trust. The city behind him grew quieter with every step. The familiar streets slowly disappeared into narrow stone paths lined with ancient cedar trees. Rain continued to fall beyond the branches, yet beneath the forest canopy, the ground remained perfectly dry. Jack paused for a moment. The scent of damp earth mixed with cedarwood filled the cool night air. It felt peaceful, almost as though the forest itself had been waiting for him. Golden lanterns began to appear between the trees. They floated silently, without ropes, without hands, without wind. Their warm light painted soft circles across the moss-covered path. Tiny white flowers rested along the edges of the trail. Jack had seen them before. They only bloomed when the museum opened its doors. He knelt beside one of the flowers. Its petals shimmered faintly beneath the lantern light. As his fingertips brushed against them, the flower released a tiny golden spark that drifted gently into the darkness. Jack smiled. The museum always welcomed its visitors in quiet ways. He continued walking. The deeper he traveled into the forest, the quieter the world became. Even the rain sounded distant now. Only his slow footsteps remained. Then, another sound appeared. Soft footsteps, not behind him, ahead. Jack stopped. Between the shadows, two brilliant blue eyes slowly emerged. The white fox, its snowy fur glowed softly beneath the floating lanterns. Every movement was calm, graceful, almost dreamlike. The fox looked directly into Jack's eyes. Neither of them moved. Neither of them needed to. After a few quiet moments, the white fox turned and continued deeper into the forest. Its fluffy tail disappeared behind the ancient trees. Jack followed. The narrow trail twisted gently through towering cedars, older than memory itself. Some of their enormous trunks were covered with glowing ivy. Others held tiny golden clocks embedded within their bark. Every clock displayed a different time, yet none of them ticked. Jack slowed his pace. The museum had taught him something strange. Not every clock measured hours. Some measured memories. Some measured dreams. And some measured hope. A gentle breeze drifted through the forest. For a brief moment, thousands of glowing leaves floated silently from the branches above. Instead of falling to the ground, they drifted upward, toward the stars hidden beyond the rain clouds. Jack watched them disappear. The forest had its own rules, rules older than time itself. Ahead, the trees slowly parted. Beyond them stood the familiar stone bridge. Its weathered arches stretched across a river of perfectly still water. No ripples, no current, only reflections. The floating lanterns, the ancient trees, the falling rain. Everything appeared inside the water with impossible clarity. Jack stepped onto the bridge. Halfway across, he looked down. His own reflection smiled back at him. Jack blinked. When he looked again, the reflection stood perfectly still, as though nothing had happened. He quietly continued walking. Some things inside this place were never meant to be explained. At the end of the bridge, the white fox waited patiently. Behind it, through drifting silver mist, the towering gates of the Museum of Forgotten Dreams slowly appeared once again. Warm golden light escaped through the narrow opening between the enormous bronze doors. The museum had been waiting all along, the hall of silent echoes. The great bronze doors opened without a sound. No ancient hinges groaned. No heavy stone trembled. It was as though the museum had been waiting with quiet patience, knowing exactly when Jack would return. Warm golden light spilled gently across the stone steps. Behind him, the forest slowly disappeared beneath the curtain of rain. Ahead, only silence remained. Not an empty silence, a comforting one, the kind found inside old libraries, snow-covered forests, or homes that had waited faithfully for someone to come back. The white fox stepped through the doorway first. Its glowing blue eyes reflected thousands of tiny lights dancing somewhere deep inside the museum. Jack followed. The air was pleasantly warm. It carried the comforting scent of aged cedar wood, old parchment, melted candle wax, and something sweeter, like honey drifting through autumn leaves. Above him stretched an impossibly high ceiling. Golden chandeliers floated gently beneath painted constellations that slowly moved across the dark blue ceiling. Stars shimmered, clouds drifted. A silver moon quietly crossed the painted sky. The ceiling was alive. Jack stopped walking. Even after all his previous visits, the museum still found new ways to surprise him. The white fox continued ahead without looking back. It already knew the path. Jack smiled softly. Perhaps the fox had always known. Their footsteps echoed gently across polished marble floors. Yet every echo sounded different. The first echoed like distant laughter. The second carried the soft turning of book pages. Another sounded like gentle rain against an old rooftop. Jack paused. He took another step. This time, the echo sounded like someone whispering his name. He looked around. The grand hallway stood completely empty. Only endless bookshelves stretched into the distance. Thousands upon thousands of books rested peacefully upon ancient wooden shelves. Some glowed softly. Others remained wrapped in silver cloth. Many appeared far older than any book Jack had ever seen. None held titles upon their covers. The librarian had once explained why. Names are remembered, he had said. Dreams are felt. Jack finally understood what he had meant. The white fox stopped beside an enormous wooden pillar. Wrapped around it grew glowing vines filled with tiny crystal flowers. At the center of the pillar hung an old brass sign. Its letters slowly rearranged themselves. Jack watched silently as the words settled into place. The Hall of Silent Echoes. He whispered the name aloud. Almost immediately, the hallway answered. Not with voices, but with memories. Soft music drifted somewhere beyond the shelves. A distant child laughed. Someone turned another page. A fireplace crackled warmly. None of the sounds came from real people. They were gentle echoes, left behind by dreams that had once been cherished. Jack closed his eyes. The museum never shouted. It whispered patiently, kindly, as though afraid of waking someone who had finally fallen asleep. When he opened his eyes again, the white fox had already begun walking once more. It led him deeper into the endless hall. As they rounded the next corner, Jack noticed dozens of golden picture frames hanging in the air. Each frame floated silently, without touching the walls inside them. No paintings, no photographs, only moving moments. A little girl chasing butterflies across a meadow. An elderly couple watching snow fall from a cabin window. A sailor standing quietly beneath countless stars. A boy reading beside a fireplace while rain tapped gently against the glass. Every frame held someone's forgotten dream, not lost forever, simply waiting to be remembered. Jack felt something gentle settle inside his heart. This museum had never collected treasures. It had always protected something far more precious: hope. The white fox stopped one final time. Ahead, another enormous doorway slowly began to open. Beyond it, a warm golden glow shimmered like sunrise beneath falling stars. Whatever waited inside, the museum had been patiently preparing Jack to see it. And tonight, another forgotten dream was about to awaken. The Gallery of Unfinished Dreams. The doorway opened slowly, not because it was heavy, but because some places deserved to be entered. Gently, a warm golden glow flowed into the hallway, carrying with it the familiar scent of cedarwood, old parchment, and rain-soaked stone. The white fox stepped through first. Its snowy paws made no sound upon the polished floor. Jack followed quietly behind. The room beyond was unlike any chamber he had seen before. It was vast, so vast that its ceiling disappeared into soft clouds, drifting beneath endless stars. Hundreds of marble pedestals stretched into the distance. Upon each rested a glass vessel. Some were no larger than a teacup. Others stood taller than a person. Inside every vessel, a dream quietly slept. Golden lights floated lazily through the air, like tiny fireflies. The museum felt alive, not awake, simply breathing. Jack walked between the silent displays. The first vessel contained a tiny wooden sailboat. Its white sails moved gently, although no wind touched them. Small waves shimmered beneath it, sparkling beneath miniature moonlight. Beside it rested a small brass plaque. It read, A boy who dreamed of crossing every ocean. Jack smiled softly. He imagined a child standing beside a quiet harbor, believing the world was far larger than anyone else could see. The next vessel held something different. A small cottage. Its chimney released tiny curls of smoke. Snow fell endlessly upon its roof. Warm orange light glowed through every window. The plaque simply said, "The home she never stopped missing." Jack remained there for several quiet moments. He could almost hear laughter drifting from inside. The comforting sound of a kettle beginning to boil. Someone placing another log onto a peaceful fire. The museum never showed sadness, only love that time had quietly hidden. The white fox waited patiently a few steps ahead. Its glowing blue eyes reflected the countless dreams surrounding them. Jack continued walking. Each vessel held another forgotten hope. A violin that still played gentle music. A paper airplane forever floating through a summer sky. A tiny lighthouse whose lantern never stopped shining. An unfinished painting where the sunrise patiently waited for its final brushstroke. Every dream seemed frozen, yet alive, as though waiting for the day someone remembered it. Again, the deeper Jack walked, the quieter everything became. Even his breathing slowed. Then, he noticed one pedestal standing completely alone. Unlike the others, its glass vessel was empty. No dream floated inside. No light shimmered within. Only silence. Jack stepped closer. The brass plaque beneath it had no writing. Only a single question. Who will dream this next? Jack stared at the empty vessel. For a moment, he thought he saw his own reflection inside the glass. Then it faded. The white fox quietly approached him. It gently touched the edge of the pedestal with its nose. Immediately, a tiny golden spark appeared inside the empty vessel. It floated upward, slowly, gracefully, like the first star appearing after sunset. Jack watched in silence. The spark grew brighter, not into a memory, not into a picture, but into possibility. He finally understood. The museum did not only preserve forgotten dreams, it also protected the dreams that had not yet been dreamed. Somewhere, someone would one day need hope. And when that moment arrived, the museum would already be waiting. Far above, a deep bronze bell rang once. Its peaceful echo drifted through every corner of the endless gallery. The white fox lifted its head. Its ears twitched gently. It turned toward another corridor, hidden beyond towering marble columns. Jack followed without speaking. The next part of the museum was waiting, and somewhere beyond the golden light, a forgotten door was beginning to open. The keeper of the sleeping stars. The corridor curved gently into darkness. There were no sharp corners inside the museum. Every hallway seemed to flow naturally into the next, like the turning of a page in a favorite book. Jack walked beside the white fox in comfortable silence. The gentle glow of golden lanterns followed them from above. Never too bright, never too dim. Just enough to make every step feel safe. Ahead, the hallway slowly widened. The air became cooler. Not cold, simply fresh, like the first breath taken beneath a sky full of stars. The white fox stopped before an enormous circular doorway carved from pale marble. Unlike every door Jack had seen before, this one had no handle, no lock, only countless tiny stars carved into its surface. Each one shimmered faintly. The fox quietly placed one paw upon the stone at once. Every carved star began glowing with soft, silver light. One by one, slowly, patiently, until the entire doorway looked like the night sky itself. Without a single sound, it opened. Jack stepped inside. His breath caught. The room beyond was unlike anything he had ever imagined. There were no walls, no ceiling, only an endless sky stretching in every direction. Millions of tiny stars floated peacefully through the darkness, yet they were not distant. They drifted only a few feet above the marble floor, moving slowly like glowing lanterns. Upon a calm river, the entire chamber shimmered with quiet light. Jack instinctively lowered his voice, not because anyone had asked him to, but because this place deserved silence. The white fox wandered gently among the floating stars. None of them moved away. Instead, they drifted closer. As though greeting an old friend, Jack reached out carefully. One tiny star settled into the palm of his hand. It felt warm, weightless, peaceful. Inside its gentle light, he saw something. A young girl lying beneath a blanket while her grandmother quietly read a bedtime story. The little girl smiled. Her eyes slowly closed. The memory faded. The star floated upward once again. Jack watched it disappear among the others. Every star carried a peaceful ending to someone's day. A final, comforting memory before sleep. Far across the chamber, a single figure stood beneath a silver tree. The librarian. He held his familiar golden lantern, though here, its warm glow seemed almost unnecessary beside the endless stars. Jack walked toward him. The old man smiled kindly. "I wondered how long it would take you to find this room." Jack looked around in quiet amazement. What is this place? The librarian gently raised his lantern. The keeper's chamber. Jack frowned slightly. The keeper? The old man nodded. Every dream needs someone to remember it. He looked upward. And every peaceful night needs someone to protect its stars. Jack followed his gaze. High above, one star drifted more slowly than the others. Its light pulsed gently, like a calm heartbeat. The white fox sat quietly beneath it, watching, waiting. The librarian spoke again, almost in a whisper. Most people believe stars are born in the sky. He smiled softly. But some, they are born inside peaceful dreams. Jack stood silently beneath the endless lights. For the first time, he realized the museum was far larger than books, far older than memories, and far more magical than he had ever believed. Somewhere within this endless place, a new mystery was quietly waiting, and tonight, the stars themselves seemed ready to reveal it. The clock that never slept. For a long while, Neither Jack nor the librarian spoke. The stars drifted silently above them, each carrying a peaceful memory from someone who had long since forgotten it. The white fox remained beneath the brightest star, its glowing blue eyes reflecting countless tiny lights. Everything felt still, as though even time had slowed to rest. Then, a soft sound echoed somewhere beyond the chamber. Tick, tick, tick. It was so quiet that Jack almost mistook it for falling rain. The librarian slowly turned toward the sound. "It has begun." Jack looked at him. "What has?" The old man smiled gently. "The oldest clock in the museum has awakened." Jack frowned. "The museum has clocks?" The librarian chuckled softly. "It has many, but only one still remembers every second that has ever existed." The white fox stood. Without hesitation, it walked toward a narrow passage hidden behind the silver tree. Jack followed. The tunnel curved downward beneath smooth white stone. Golden lanterns floated silently overhead, casting warm circles of light upon the walls. As they descended, the ticking became clearer, slow, gentle, patient, never hurried. Every sound seemed perfectly spaced, as though the clock itself had learned the rhythm of peaceful breathing. Eventually, the passage opened into another chamber. Jack stopped walking. The room was breathtaking. In its center stood an enormous grandfather clock, unlike anything he had ever seen. It stretched nearly to the ceiling. Its polished wooden frame shimmered with rich walnut tones. Golden vines climbed gracefully around its sides. Tiny white flowers bloomed between the carvings. The pendulum swung quietly behind crystal glass. Left, right, left, right. Every movement filled the room with calm. Yet something felt unusual. There were no numbers on its face, only 12 tiny stars arranged in a perfect circle. The hands moved slowly across them. Jack stepped closer. "What time does it show?" The librarian answered without looking away. "It doesn't measure hours." Jack glanced back. "Then what does it measure?" The old man rested one hand upon the warm wood. "Peace." Jack remained silent. The librarian continued. "Every peaceful moment someone experiences before falling asleep. The clock remembers. Every bedtime story, every quiet prayer, every warm fire on a rainy evening, every gentle lullaby. The clock keeps them all." Jack watched the pendulum continue its endless journey. Tick, tick, tick. Its sound was strangely comforting, like listening to distant rain from beneath a warm blanket. The white fox quietly circled the clock once before sitting beside its base. Its ears lifted, as though listening for something hidden deep inside. Jack leaned closer. For just a moment, he thought he heard voices, not conversations, only tiny fragments. A mother whispering good night, a child laughing softly, someone closing the final page of a favorite book, a crackling fireplace, rain against a bedroom window. Then silence returned. Jack smiled. The museum wasn't preserving moments of excitement. It was protecting moments of comfort, the small memories people carried into sleep. High above, the pendulum suddenly slowed. Once, twice, then stopped completely. The ticking disappeared. The entire chamber became perfectly still. Even the floating lanterns seemed frozen. Jack looked toward the librarian. The old man was already watching the clock. His peaceful expression had changed, only slightly, but enough for Jack to notice. "The clock has never stopped before," he whispered. A gentle breeze drifted through the chamber. The 12 tiny stars upon the clock face slowly dimmed, one by one, until only a single star remained glowing. The white fox quietly stood, its brilliant blue eyes fixed upon a dark hallway that neither Jack nor the librarian had noticed before. Beyond that hallway, something had awakened, something older than the museum itself. And somewhere within the growing silence, a single forgotten dream called Jack's name. The door without a name. The chamber remained perfectly still. The great clock no longer ticked. Its pendulum rested motionless behind the crystal glass, as though time itself had chosen to pause. Jack stood quietly beside the librarian. Neither of them spoke. Sometimes, silence carried more meaning than words ever could. The white fox remained at the entrance of the dark hallway. Its ears were raised. Its bright blue eyes never left the darkness beyond. It wasn't afraid. It was listening. The librarian finally took a slow breath. "In all my years, I have never seen the keeper's clock fall silent." His voice was calm, but Jack noticed something unusual. The old man tightened his grip on the golden lantern, only slightly. It was the first time Jack had ever seen uncertainty in the librarian. The lantern's warm light stretched across the polished floor. It revealed a narrow passage neither of them had noticed before. There had been no doorway, no corridor, no opening in the wall. Yet now, a hallway waited, as though it had quietly appeared the moment the clock stopped. Jack looked toward the librarian. Was this always here? The old man slowly shook his head. No, he smiled gently. The museum only reveals certain paths when it believes someone is ready. Jack looked back toward the passage. The white fox stepped inside without hesitation. Its white fur glowed softly against the darkness. For a brief moment, only the fox's brilliant blue eyes remained visible. Then even they disappeared around the bend. Jack followed. The librarian walked beside him. The hallway was unlike any other part of the museum. There were no floating lanterns, no glowing vines, no shelves filled with books. Only smooth stone walls, washed in soft moonlight, that seemed to come from nowhere at all. Their footsteps echoed gently, not loudly, only enough to remind them they were not dreaming. The air smelled different here. Fresh rain, old cedar, and something almost impossible to describe. Like the scent of paper that had waited inside a forgotten letter for many years. The corridor stretched onward without hurry. After several quiet minutes, the white fox stopped. Ahead stood a single wooden door. It was smaller than the grand bronze gates of the museum. Simpler, older, Its wood had faded with age, until it resembled silver driftwood, washed ashore by countless seasons. There was no handle, no keyhole, no carving, nothing at all, only one small brass plate. Jack stepped closer. The plate was completely blank. "No name," he whispered. The librarian nodded. "Every room in the museum has a name." He looked thoughtfully at the quiet door. "Except this one." Jack studied it. It seemed almost ordinary, yet something about it made the entire hallway feel peaceful, as though the door had been waiting patiently for someone to arrive. The white fox approached. Instead of pushing the door, it simply sat before it, its tail wrapped neatly around its paws. Then it looked directly at Jack, waiting. Jack slowly stepped forward. He raised one hand. His fingertips rested lightly against the weathered wood. It felt warm, not from sunlight, not from fire, warm in the comforting way an old book feels after being held for many years. The moment his hand touched the door, a faint golden ripple spread across its surface. Tiny stars appeared beneath the wood. They drifted slowly, like reflections upon calm water. Jack blinked. The stars disappeared. The wood became ordinary once again. He looked toward the librarian. "What was that?" The old man smiled. "The museum recognized you." "But," Jack glanced back at the blank brass plate, "why doesn't it have a name?" The librarian lifted his lantern slightly. "Because names belong to things that are already understood. This room is still writing its story." A gentle silence settled over the hallway. Far behind them, the great clock remained still. No ticking, no movement, only quiet. Jack closed his eyes for a single moment. Somehow, he felt that whatever rested beyond this simple wooden door had been waiting for him long before he had ever discovered the museum. Not because he was special, but because every traveler eventually reached a door they could open only when they were ready. The white fox slowly stood. It touched the bottom of the door with its nose. Without a sound, the blank brass plate shimmered. Letters began to appear, one by one, slowly, patiently, as though they were being written by invisible hands. Jack watched in complete silence. The final letter settled into place. The brass plate now read, "For the one who still wonders." The door remained closed, but something beyond it had quietly awakened, beyond the quiet door. For several long moments, no one moved. The words upon the small brass plate shimmered softly beneath the lantern's warm glow. "For the one who still wonders." Jack read them once, then again. Each time, the words felt a little different. Not because they had changed, but because he had. The white fox stood quietly before the door. Its bright blue eyes reflected the faint golden letters, calm and unwavering. The librarian lowered his lantern slightly. "The museum rarely gives answers," he said in a gentle voice. "It prefers to ask the right questions." Jack rested his hand once more upon the weathered wood. This time, he felt something unexpected. Not a pulse, not warmth, a heartbeat slow, steady, peaceful, as though the room beyond the door were gently breathing. He looked toward the librarian. "Is someone inside?" The old man smiled softly. "Not someone. Something." Jack waited. The librarian continued. "A forgotten possibility." The words settled into the silence without explanation. Jack had learned long ago not to rush for answers. Some truths revealed themselves only to those willing to wait. The white fox stepped closer. It brushed its nose lightly against Jack's hand, almost encouraging him. Jack nodded. With the gentlest touch, he pressed against the wooden door. It opened effortlessly. No creak, no echo, only a slow movement, as though the museum itself had quietly welcomed him forward. Warm light drifted through the opening. It was softer than candlelight, gentler than sunrise. The room beyond felt familiar, though Jack was certain he had never seen it before. He stepped inside. The white fox followed. The librarian entered last, quietly closing the door behind them. The chamber was surprisingly small, round in shape, peaceful. Shelves lined the curved walls, though they held no books instead. Each shelf displayed a single object, a folded paper crane, a worn compass, a tiny music box, a pressed autumn leaf, a child's marble, an old fountain pen, a smooth river stone. None of them glowed, none appeared magical, yet every object carried a quiet sense of importance. Jack approached the nearest shelf. There rested a simple ceramic teacup. Its handle had been repaired with delicate golden lines. Beside it sat a small brass plaque. It read, "The courage to begin again." Jack looked thoughtfully at the cup. It wasn't valuable because it was perfect. It was valuable because it had been carefully mended. He smiled. The museum saw beauty differently than the outside world. As they continued around the room, each object carried only a few gentle words. A promise kept, a kindness remembered, a quiet goodbye. The first page of a new story. None of the objects belonged to kings or heroes or famous people. They belonged to ordinary lives. Moments so small that most people would eventually forget them. But the museum had not. The white fox paused before an empty shelf. Unlike the others, nothing rested there. Only another small brass plaque. Jack leaned closer. It simply read, "Reserved." He frowned slightly. Reserved for what? The librarian's lantern cast a warm circle of light across the empty wood. "For a moment," he said quietly, "that has not happened yet." Jack remained silent. The idea settled gently inside him. The museum wasn't only protecting the past, it was patiently making room for the future. A place for tomorrow's kindness, tomorrow's hope, tomorrow's dream. Far above, a single golden bell chimed once. Its soft note drifted through the chamber like a quiet breeze. The white fox lifted its head. The librarian looked toward the ceiling and smiled. "It seems," he whispered, "the museum has another place to show us." The lantern's flame brightened ever so slightly on the opposite side of the circular room. A narrow archway, hidden moments before within the stone wall, slowly revealed itself. Beyond it, a gentle golden mist floated lazily through the darkness. Jack took one peaceful breath, then another. Without a word, he followed the white fox toward the newly opened passage. Somewhere beyond the quiet mist, another forgotten wonder patiently waited. The room where Tamara waited. The archway welcomed them without a sound. A veil of soft golden mist drifted gently across the floor, moving as slowly as clouds across a quiet autumn sky. Jack stepped through first. The white fox walked just ahead of him, its snowy coat glowing faintly in the warm light. Behind them, the librarian carried his lantern with the same calm patience he always had. The passage was narrow. Its curved stone walls were smooth beneath the lantern's glow, and delicate vines traced graceful patterns across the ceiling. Tiny white blossoms rested among the leaves. Their petals shimmered softly whenever the lantern passed beneath them. No breeze stirred the air, yet the flowers swayed gently as though breathing in peaceful sleep. The corridor curved once, then opened into another chamber. Jack stopped. The room before him felt wonderfully familiar, not because he had visited it before, but because it carried the comforting feeling of a place he had always hoped existed. It was filled with windows, dozens of them, perhaps hundreds. Each window stood within an elegant wooden frame, stretching from the polished floor almost to the high arched ceiling. Outside every window, a different sky. One revealed a quiet sunrise, spreading golden light across endless green hills. Another overlooked a peaceful ocean, where gentle waves rolled beneath a silver moon. Beyond the glass stood a small cottage with warm light glowing through its windows. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney. Rain tapped softly against the roof. A single rocking chair rested beside the fireplace. Empty, waiting, Jack smiled. Without realizing it, the room beyond the glass felt peaceful, like the ending of a long journey. The librarian stepped beside him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jack nodded. "It feels real." The old man smiled. "It is." Jack looked at him. "But I've never seen this place." "You haven't," the librarian replied gently. "But someone will." Jack turned back toward the glowing cottage. "The museum remembers forgotten dreams," he said thoughtfully. "So why show places that don't exist yet?" The librarian's lantern reflected softly across the window. "Because hope also needs a home." Jack remained silent. The answer settled naturally inside him. He continued walking through the chamber. Each window revealed another quiet possibility. A library where candles glowed late into the evening. A wooden bridge crossing a gentle river beneath autumn trees. A lighthouse standing peacefully above calm seas. A garden blooming beneath thousands of glowing lanterns. None of them carried names. None belonged to anyone. Not yet. The white fox stopped before the final window. Unlike the others, its glass reflected only soft golden mist. Nothing could be seen beyond it. Jack stepped closer. As he did, the mist slowly faded. Little by little, a familiar figure appeared. A man stood beside a rain-covered window. A warm fire burned quietly nearby. A cup of tea rested upon a wooden table. Outside, rain fell gently beneath amber street lamps. Jack blinked. The room looked remarkably familiar. It resembled his own apartment. Not exactly, but almost. He looked more carefully. The chair beside the fireplace was occupied. Someone sat there, reading an old book. The person's face remained hidden behind its pages. Peace filled the room. Nothing extraordinary happened. No magic, no mystery, only warmth, comfort, home. Jack felt an unexpected calm settle over him. The librarian spoke softly. Sometimes, the greatest dream is not discovering somewhere new. He smiled kindly. Sometimes, it's finding peace exactly where you are. Jack looked through the quiet window once more. The unknown reader slowly turned another page. The fireplace crackled gently outside. The rain continued to fall. The white fox quietly brushed against Jack's leg. Before walking toward another doorway that had appeared at the far end of the chamber, its blue eyes looked back only once, patiently, as if to say the journey was not over. Jack took one last look at the peaceful window. Then, with a quiet smile, he followed somewhere beyond the next doorway. The museum was already preparing another story, the garden that waited in the rain. The doorway opened slowly. Beyond it, there were no towering bookshelves, no marble halls, no glowing chambers filled with stars, only rain, soft, gentle, endless rain. Jack stepped forward. The cool scent of fresh earth immediately surrounded him. The air felt different here, warmer than the forest outside the museum, yet cooler than the quiet halls behind him. The white fox walked ahead along a narrow stone path. Tiny drops of rain landed upon its snowy fur, but instead of soaking into the soft white coat, each drop transformed into a tiny point of golden light before quietly disappearing. Jack smiled. Even the rain behaved differently here. The path curved gently through an endless garden. Ancient cedar trees stood peacefully beside flowering hedges. White roses climbed weathered stone walls. Small streams wandered lazily beneath tiny wooden bridges. Everywhere Jack looked, life moved slowly, naturally, peacefully. There were no grand monuments, no hidden treasures waiting to be discovered, only quiet beauty. The kind people often hurried past without noticing. A robin rested upon a low branch nearby. It sang only once, a short, gentle melody. Then silence returned. The white fox paused beside a small stone bench. Its surface was worn smooth by countless years. Tiny moss covered its legs. Drops of rain gathered along its edges before slipping quietly onto the ground below. Jack sat down. The stone felt surprisingly warm. He looked upward. Gray clouds drifted lazily across the sky. Yet beyond them, faint stars continued to shimmer. Night and day seemed to exist together inside this hidden garden. The librarian arrived a few quiet moments later. His golden lantern reflected softly across the wet stones. He stood beside the bench without speaking. Neither of them felt the need. The rain itself seemed to tell the story. After a long silence, Jack finally asked, "Does anyone come here?" The librarian smiled. "Not often." Jack looked around the peaceful garden. "It's beautiful." "It is." "Then why is it empty?" The old man watched a single raindrop fall into the nearby stream. "It isn't empty." Jack followed his gaze. The stream flowed gently beneath a tiny wooden bridge. Floating upon its surface were hundreds of paper boats. Some were white, others pale blue. A few had faded with time until they were almost silver. None drifted away. The water carried them slowly in endless circles. Jack knelt beside the stream. Each little boat held something written inside. Not long letters, only a few simple words. "Thank you. Come home safely. I believe in you. Sleep well. I'll always remember." Jack quietly read each message as another paper boat drifted past. They were ordinary words, simple words, the kind people spoke every day. Yet here, they felt precious. The white fox gently touched one tiny boat with its nose. The paper shimmered softly, then continued floating peacefully along the stream. Jack looked toward the librarian. "Who wrote these?" The old man rested one hand upon the handle of his lantern. "People who never realized their kindness became someone's dream." Jack remained still. The words settled gently inside him. Perhaps that was the museum's greatest secret. It wasn't built only from forgotten dreams. It was built from quiet moments of kindness, the ones the world rarely stopped to notice. A warm breeze moved gently through the garden. Thousands of white flower petals lifted from the trees. Instead of falling, they floated across the rain like tiny feathers. The entire garden shimmered beneath their quiet dance. The white fox watched them with peaceful blue eyes. For the first time that evening, Jack felt no curiosity, no questions, only gratitude. He listened to the rain, to the stream, to the distant birds resting somewhere beyond the cedar trees. Everything belonged together. Nothing hurried. Nothing demanded attention. The museum was teaching him something once again. Not through books, not through words, but through stillness. Far ahead, beyond another curved stone bridge, a single golden gate slowly appeared between the trees. Its vines glowed faintly beneath the rain. The white fox stood. It looked toward the gate, then back at Jack, patiently waiting. The librarian lifted his lantern. A warm smile crossed his weathered face. "The garden has shared its lesson," he said softly, "and another path is ready." Jack rose from the stone bench. He took one last look at the quiet stream, where the little paper boats continued their peaceful journey beneath the gentle rain. Then, without a word, he followed the white fox toward the glowing gate. Beyond it, another forgotten wonder patiently waited beneath the endless rain. The bridge of quiet promises. The golden gate opened without a sound. Its delicate vines slowly parted, their tiny white blossoms glowing softly beneath the gentle rain. Jack stepped through. The white fox walked just ahead, its snowy tail swaying peacefully with every graceful step. Behind them, the librarian's lantern cast a warm golden light across the rain-kissed path. Beyond the gate, the garden slowly faded into silence. A narrow stone walkway stretched forward between rows of ancient willow trees. Their long silver branches drifted gently toward the ground, forming a peaceful canopy overhead. Rain continued to fall, but beneath the willow branches, only a few tiny drops reached the path below. Everything felt wonderfully still. The air carried the comforting scent of wet cedar, fresh moss, and blooming jasmine. Jack breathed deeply. The museum always seemed to know exactly when to slow his thoughts. The path continued without hurry. Soon, the gentle sound of flowing water reached his ears. Not the playful stream from the garden. This river moved differently, slowly, gracefully, as though it had nowhere it needed to be. The trees gradually opened. Before them stood an elegant stone bridge. It was long and gently curved, built from pale gray stone, polished smooth by countless seasons. No carvings decorated its sides. No statues watched over it. Its beauty came from its simplicity. The white fox stopped at the beginning of the bridge. It looked toward Jack, then quietly crossed first. Jack followed. Each footstep echoed softly across the ancient stones. Below, the river reflected the cloudy sky with perfect clarity. Jack paused halfway across. Something caught his attention. There were no fish beneath the water, no drifting leaves instead. Small lights floated just beneath the surface. Hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. Each glowed with a warm golden color. They drifted slowly together, like tiny stars resting beneath the river. Jack leaned carefully over the stone railing. One of the lights rose gently toward the surface. As it touched the water, a quiet voice filled the air. "I'll be here when you return." The words were soft, kind. Then the light slowly sank once more beneath the river. Another light drifted upward. "You are never alone." It too faded peacefully beneath the water. Jack remained still. One by one, the lights continued rising. Each carried only a few gentle words. "I believe in you. Take your time. Rest now. I'm proud of you." Simple promises, simple kindness. Yet hearing them felt like sitting beside a warm fire on a rainy evening. Jack turned toward the librarian. "What is this river?" The old man rested both hands upon his lantern. "It remembers every promise that was spoken with love." Jack looked back at the glowing water. "And they're still here?" The librarian nodded. "Words spoken with kindness never truly disappear. They continue traveling, even long after the voices have fallen silent." A peaceful silence settled around them. The white fox sat quietly near the far end of the bridge, patiently waiting. Its bright blue eyes reflected the countless golden lights below. Jack smiled softly. The museum had shown him dreams, hope, memories. Now it was showing him something even gentler. The quiet strength of simple words, the kind that stayed with people for years, sometimes without them ever realizing it. A cool breeze moved across the river. Tiny circles spread gently across the water. The golden lights shimmered together, creating the reflection of a sky filled with stars. For a brief moment, Jack could no longer tell where the river ended and where the night sky began. The librarian smiled. This bridge has only one lesson. Jack looked at him. The old man spoke quietly. Never underestimate a gentle word. It may become the light someone follows through their darkest night. Jack lowered his eyes toward the peaceful river once more. He silently carried those words with him. Then, the white fox stood. Beyond the end of the bridge, a narrow lantern-lit path disappeared into a quiet grove of towering cedar trees. Somewhere within that peaceful forest, another part of the museum patiently waited. Jack took one final look at the glowing river, then followed the white fox into the gentle rain, leaving the bridge of quiet promises behind. The lantern grove. The lantern-lit path curved gently beneath the towering cedar trees. Jack walked in comfortable silence. The white fox moved gracefully ahead, never rushing, never looking back for long. It always seemed to know that Jack would follow. Behind them, the bridge of quiet promises slowly disappeared into the soft curtain of rain. The air grew cooler, not with cold, but with calm. The scent of cedar, damp earth, and wild jasmine drifted gently through the forest. Every breath felt slow, easy, peaceful above. The rain continued falling, yet only an occasional drop slipped through the thick canopy, landing softly upon the moss below. Golden lanterns hung from the ancient branches. Each one glowed with a quiet amber light. None swayed in the breeze. None flickered. Their steady light made the forest feel warm, like a familiar place remembered from a childhood dream. Jack noticed something unusual. Every lantern was different. One was carved from polished walnut, another from pale birch wood. Some were made of bronze, others of smooth white stone. No two were alike. The white fox stopped beside the nearest lantern. It lifted its nose toward the warm light. The flame inside brightened ever so slightly. Jack stepped closer. Unlike an ordinary flame, this one moved without smoke. Its golden glow curled gently like silk, drifting through still water. A tiny brass plaque rested beneath the lantern. It read, "A light shared is never lost." Jack smiled softly. The words felt simple, yet somehow complete. They continued walking. Every few steps, another lantern appeared. Each carried its own quiet message. Hope begins with one small flame. A little farther, even gentle light can guide the weary. Another waited beneath a flowering cedar branch. Kindness often arrives quietly. Jack found himself reading each one more slowly than the last. There was no need to hurry. The museum will wait patiently until the rain returns once again. Thank you for spending this peaceful night with Pickorama Sleep Zone. If you enjoy tonight's journey, another quiet adventure is already waiting. Until we meet again, sleep peacefully, dream gently, and good night.